it's Deborah from Attic Lane, and I'm really pleased to say that my Simon Says stamp kit has arrived. It's about 10 days late and I was beginning to get a little bit worried, but it's here now. I've already had a little poke about because I was just too excited to see what was in the kit. But I'm ready to share it with you now. I've calmed down a little bit, and I'm going to start with the double-sided papers that are in this kit. There are some great extra little things that you can cut out and use as ephemera or sentiments on your cards, and some of these are really, really lovely. Because they're double-sided, I'm going to have such a difficult time deciding which side to use, but I've already got some ideas for the best way to get the most out of these pages. And look at this, there are some great borders in here as well. These are always really good and really useful to have in your stash just to complete cards. So that's the paper pads. Then there are some pom-poms, little white pom-poms, and these are quite good fun. I'm going to see if these will stick onto the bunny that is part of the stamp set. So this stamp set is called Showers and Flowers, and there's a rabbit and there's a chick in the rain, and there are lots of lovely sentiments. There are some welly boots with flowers popping out of them. So there's quite a few ideas that this has sparked off for me as well. Almost too many ideas to fit into 10 cards, but we'll see how we get on. There is a second stamp set as well. This one is called Choose Joy. This has got a really useful banner. It's got a gingham stamp, which I believe you can repeat stamp with, so you can get a bigger image than just the size of the stamp. There are some flowers and some branches. More sentiments, more wellies with flowers in them. Some of the sentiments are very nice. For example, bloom where you're planted, you bring sunshine to a gloomy day. They're really cheerful sentiments. There are some envelopes. Two of these are pearlized, and they match the two colours that you get in your ink pads in the kit. This is hollyhock, this is called wisteria. So they match those, and this envelope, I'm not sure if you can see, it's slightly embossed, and it's slightly wood effect. And I think we know that's not going to stay an envelope for long, is it? So we'll have a play with that. Now, I think the kit may have altered ever so slightly from what I saw advertised, because I thought there were going to be 2 sheets of stickers, but maybe I'm wrong. So what I have here is a really large sheet with stickers on. It's so large I can barely get it onto the camera for you. But there's lots of ideas on that. I really love this watering can. Absolutely love that. And I also really like these little tags. So I've got an idea for how to use those as well. Then there is a separate little bag that has a range of sentiments in. So there are, these are already cut out, so I'll just lay them out so you can see them. They coordinate with the colours in the paper pad, and they coordinate with some of the stamps as well. So there are, I really like these ones. I like these dark, I think that's a banner, so I guess you could put some sentiments in there. I really like this one actually, that's lovely. So there are quite a lot of those that, as I say, came in a bag, and I think I was expecting a pop-out sheet, but that's fine, that saves me popping them out. I forgot to put those 2 back. I've got my lollipop. That's for later, that's for me. Nobody knows about that one. Now I have also, you can tell because I've taken the little yellow ring from this pen that sort of protects it and stops the ink getting into the front of the pen. But I've had a little play with this this Nouveau pen, which is a glitter gloss. So we will see what we can do with that as well on the cards. There's also, I actually haven't opened this one. This looks like this could be playing cards. There's a few in there. Looks like they just they're already scored down the centre, so they're going to fold in half really easily. There is the inspiration sheet as well, as always, and then there is some card in lovely spring colours. So nice 2 shades of green, a light and a dark, and then a yellow, really bright yellow, and then a white and a craft. So 5 sheets as always. So we're going to crack on with card 1, except card 1 isn't really a card. I was really taken with that envelope, and so I've cut it out to the largest size I could get from the envelope, and I want to fill it with some little pages that have some pockets for tucking things into. So I'm using the bag that all of the kit was delivered in, and I've cut it down so that there are 4 sheets and they fit inside the folded envelope, which you can see at the top of the screen. I'm going to create 2 pockets, so I'm cutting a little angle off the top of just one of those sheets, and I'm going to use the corner that I cut off as a template to help me get exactly the right angle on the second pocket that I'm going to cut out. When I fit them into the larger piece that hasn't been cut, you can see that they would create 2 little pockets for tucking all sorts of things into. Because the paper bag is quite flimsy, I want to give it some extra rigidity at the base, and I'm using one of the strips of paper from the sheet that has a whole load of these on them. And I've cut out some bikes and some little trucks, and I have sewn the whole piece together. So I've sewn down the side, along the bottom, and then up the other side as well. I'm just going to trim everything down and get rid of those little pieces of thread and neaten the whole thing up. Now, one of the things that I want to tuck into my pockets are some of the other cards. So I've used the inspiration sheet and I've cut out the cards that are provided to give you lots of good ideas to begin with, and I'm using them to create some of the elements within my little booklet. I'm using a random selection from the kit. I may end up switching these around, but I want to pop a few things in there just to give me an idea of how it will look. When I've finished all my 10 cards, I may go back and add different elements again. This is great fun, just deciding what you want to fiddle around with and add into the booklet and how you're going to add them in. So for example, in this piece I've cut out 2 little strips of sentiments, and I've got a bulldog clip there from the sticker sheet, and I'm going to create a hole in the top of the bulldog clip, and I'm going to add some twine. That just adds a little bit more texture and interest. To be honest, I could have gone on playing with this little booklet for much longer than I did, but because we had another 9 cards to make, I kept it pretty straightforward, pretty basic, but you could stamp on this, you could add extra stickers on this, all kinds of things. Now this takes a little bit of explaining. These are called oral swabs. I discovered them recently when I was caring for a sick relative who needed them, and I bought these on Amazon, and I found that they are brilliant for crafting. They're very solid foam. They don't disintegrate as easily as the little foam pads that you can have on the end of your finger. I don't know if that's because I'm particularly heavy-handed, but I found that these little oral swabs on a stick are terrific. They're really, really good. So I've started using those, and I keep my collection in a jar. I'm going to provide a link so you can find those on Amazon if you'd like to give those a go, but you get 250 oral swabs for about £10, so I think they're a great alternative to foam dabbers. And here's the little booklet complete. I added some white ink around the edges just to try and bring out that wood effect. I used my cutter to cut down the sheets to make top folding cards, and I've also got the 3 white or cream cards that are side folding. For this card, I want to use the snowdrops and one of the sentiments. So I've chosen the sentiment that I'm adding at the bottom there, just with plain black Versamark ink. And I've got my raindrops, and I'm going to add those just in a little random pattern at the top. The green card is a card that I've cut from the stock that was included with the kit. And I'm using the included Nuvo glitter pen to add a little dab of glitter to those raindrops so you can just make them sparkle a little bit. I'm using one of the green top folding cards and one of the sheets of paper. And I'm using a little frame, and I wanted to show you this as an alternative to matting and layering. If you want to preserve your papers or not use too much from your papers, just cut out a frame and it will look like a mat and a layer. For card 3, I'm using one of the craft cards. It's a top folding card, but I'm folding it from the side, and I've cut some card from the paper stash included in the kit and I'm going to add the 4 little elements from the sticker sheet that I liked so much, but I'm going to stick these onto craft foam. Craft foam is about 2 to 3 millimeters thick, and it's a great way of adding dimension to your cards without running through your foam tape, which is quite expensive in comparison. So I'm sticking them on to the craft foam and I'm cutting around them. When they're complete, I'm going to use my crocodile tool to punch a hole in the top, and I'm going to add a little eyelet. When the eyelets are all set in place, I'm going to use a piece of twine and I'm going to tie a knot in one end. I'm going to thread all 4 of those little eyeletted tags onto the twine, and then I'm going to add a bow on the left hand side as well, and I'll glue everything into place. I'm adding a touch of glue to the bottom of those tags so that it will help hold them into position, and once that's done, my card will be complete. I'm a terrible faffer, and I spent ages faffing on this card. As you can see, I just couldn't leave it alone even when it was finished. Lovely simple card with a little bit of dimension and interest. For card 4, I'm preparing some white heat embossed sentiments from one of the stamp sets. I'm preparing 4 because I know I'm going to be using these in future cards. I've cut one of the sheets of paper so that it will fit within one of the cream side folding cards. I've cut my black piece of card with the white sentiment on it into a thin ribbon, and now I've cut some little flowers individually from one of the other sheets of paper in the pack. Some of these I'm going to glue flat straight onto the card. Some of the others, as you can see, have got some yellow foam pads on them, and I'm using these to add a little bit of dimension. So some of them will be flat on the card and some of them will be raised up. This is a nice easy way to add dimension to your card, but it won't make it so bulky that it's difficult to get through the post or that it would get damaged going through the mail. Lovely simple card, really quick to do, and my card is finished. I wanted to use the inks that came in the kit, and so for card 5 I've got some of the flower stamps and leaf stamps from the kit, and I've dropped them onto the ink, and then I'm knocking off the strongest first impression that you would get if you went straight onto that white card, which is what I'm going to use to create the background. So on my little sheet on the left hand side, I'm knocking off the colour so that what goes on to the background on my actual card is lovely and soft. It's not strong colours because I've got other elements I want to come in and be dominant. I'm not using a green for the leaves, I'm just going in and using both of those lovely little ink pads that came with the kit, and to add some extra shimmer I'm using my Nuvo glitter gloss pen again, which is really nice, and it compares very well with the Wink of Stella, which I use all the time, so I'm very pleased to have that pen as part of this kit. I stamped out the wellies with some flowers popping out of the top, and I'm cutting around the outside and leaving a little white border. To add a frame to my plain white top folding card, I'm using the ink pad again straight onto the edges, and that will give me a nice frame in which to sit my design, and at least that way I know that everything will match. I'm going to work out where I want the elements in this card to go, and I'm going to glue them into position. So now I'm using one of my black card pieces with the white embossed sentiment on them, and I've just stuck the Wellingtons at one end of that sentiment. Card 6 is another opportunity to use the ink pads, and I'm also going to use the gingham stamp. Now this is a stamp that you can repeat with, so you can get a much bigger pattern. I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to take the piece that has the completed corner and stamp down with that in the bottom right corner every time you stamp. So in other words, use the stamp the same way up each time you put down your repeat impressions, and ink it up each time you repeat your stamp. That has given me a lovely background. I do love a gingham print. I want this card to be bright and bizazzy, so I'm using one of the yellow top folding cards, and you can get a hint of what might be coming up next as well from what's on the reverse of my gingham stamped card. And this is the watering can that I liked so much with the flowers coming out of the top. Again, I'm using one of my pre-embossed sentiments on the black strip. I'm gluing that into position. I'm using my craft foam again because I want to add some dimension to my watering can. I want it to lift up from that gingham background because that is quite a busy background. I've stuck it into position on craft foam and I'm going around the outside with a pencil. And then because this is only a light tack adhesive, I can peel it off from the craft foam and I can cut it out. I'm going to cut it out well within my pencil line. So I'm going to cut out within maybe 2 to 3 millimeters inside that pencil line, and then I know when I position the watering can on top of that, I don't have anything else to cut out. The watering can will cover the craft foam. I can position it on my card. I'm going to use a wet adhesive to put on the reverse of my craft foam. That gives me wiggle room as well. I'm not using an instant tack glue. So then I can wiggle it about, decide exactly where I want it to go, and attach it to my card. And with that, my card is complete. This card, I think, might be one of my favourites. I had to sacrifice the cut-out elements on the reverse of this paper, but the paper was so beautiful. I really wanted to use it to maximum effect, so I'm gluing it onto one of the craft top folding cards that I cut out earlier on. I'm using my craft foam again because I'm going to use that to raise up one of the elements that I've cut from the paper pad. I'm going to add 2 small holes at the top with my crocodile, and I'm going to add then 2 white eyelets. These are just eyelets that I had kicking around in my stash. I'll close them into place. Then I'm going to take some twine. I'm going to try and find the end of my twine. It's a bit of a muddle. And then when I do, I will fold it over 3 times because I want to make a nice, thick little bow. I'll tie my bow in place, I'll trim off the ends, and I'll decide whereabouts on my card I want to stick it. I'm going to use my pencil to make a little mark so I know exactly where my bow is going to go, and I'm going to use some more twine to feed through my eyelets so that it looks as if my sign is hanging from the bow. Once I've decided on the right length of my twine, I'm going to take some double-sided tape. I'm going to put it across the back of my craft foam so that it will hold the twine in place, as well as allowing me to stick this element to the front of my card. I've got my pencil mark so I know exactly where I want to cut my thread ends to, and I'm using another piece of double-sided tape to put on where my pencil mark is, and that means that I can grip the 2 pieces of twine from the sign hanging below, and I've still got enough adhesive to hang my bow. I really like that card. I don't know why, it just appeals to me. I love the colours, I love the naturalness of it, and I really like the sentiment. For card 8, I've used one of the sheets of paper from the pack and I've zigzag stitched across the top and the bottom. I'm just trimming away the excess threads, and I'm going to add this to a green side folding card, and I've cut out some 2 strips of wellies and also 2 strips of brown, although in the end I decided not to use the brown. I had a better idea. I'm going to glue the wellies in place, those 2 strips, and then I'm going to cut off the excess. This was what I thought was the better idea, and that was to put the little sentiment from the kit that says Hello Spring. Lovely and simple. For card 9, I'm going to start by using black Versacolour ink to stamp out some flowers and some leaves. Then I'm going to colour these. You can use any colour medium you want. I used a very messy watercolour ink. You can see I've gone all around the outside, but it doesn't matter. What I wanted was that watercolour ink effect on the inside of the leaves and the flowers. I then cut them out individually, and I'm using a laminated pouch. Now, for those of you who subscribe to my channel, you will have seen me use the lamination technique a few times now, and here's another way that you can use it. I've got a frame from one of my top folding cards that I've already cut out, and I'm using the frame underneath the laminating pouch to help me position where I want my flowers and my leaves to go. This will make sure that I don't have anything hanging out of the frame. It just gives me a guide. When I've finished on that side, I'm going to pull the frame down to the lower part of the laminating pouch, and I'm going to position again using that as a guide. I want to keep my sheet level so that my flowers and leaves don't all roll about, so I'm just using the reverse of the sticker sheet to help me keep it level as I feed it into my preheated laminating machine. I'm not feeding through the white piece of card, I'm just using it to guide my laminating pouch through the machine so that the flowers don't all wander about, because that has happened before and what a mess that makes. So now that that's complete, you can see I've actually given myself some options there to make 2 cards, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to add a sentiment to the bottom of the frame of the green card, and I'm going to use some white embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set that. I was trying to get this so that you could see the powder change to its solid form, but it's not quite so easy to do with the white. Now I'm taking one of the sides of my laminated pouch, and I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to leave a little rim around the outside edge, just enough so that I can glue it to the inside of the frame. I'm adding a high adhesive tack using my tape runner, because that will give a really good grab for this card, and that's the laminated pouch with the flowers pressed into position. You can see how neat a finish it gives you on the inside, and when you stand it up and look through it, it's really pretty. It's like a window with flowers in it. It's a lovely effect. And for the second of our 2 cards, I'm going to use the other half of the laminator, and this time I've stitched it to the front of one of my gingham backgrounds. I've done this using the other colour of ink pad that was part of the kit, the pink one, and I've used a zigzag stitch across the top, and I'm gluing that onto the front of a cream side folding card. Gives a really nice effect, and this little sentiment, which is white heat embossed onto black card, is going to go underneath the laminating sheet. It just adds a little bit of interest and a little extra dimension to your finished card, and it's something different. So I hope you've enjoyed watching those cards. I'm going to leave you now with some music and some close-ups of all of the cards that we've made today, and I hope you'll join me again soon.